Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, heading down to the ACC as Florida State heads on the road to play a Pitt team that really just trying to find answers on both sides of the football. And Florida State coming off a win that's about what a national championship team should look against Wake Forest. We'll get into what we saw, but this is a Florida State team that I think is finding its stride once again, heading back into that back half of the season. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, again, just want to say thank you to you guys. And I do have to give a special shout out to the Florida State fans. This is a program I've loved to talk about. The amount of support y'all show, the Go Noles in the comment section, that it fires me up. It means a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But do want to say thank you guys so much for all the support. It's an awesome fan base. I love talking this program. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with Florida State on the defensive side of the football against Wake. Dominant performance might be putting it mildly. And Jared Verse, I don't think, was blocked one time that whole afternoon. If you guys know, I went to Wake Forest. I'm a Wake Forest fan. But that is about as I expected it to go if Florida State played up to their standard. And they certainly did. You dive into what this defensive line is looking like the last couple weeks for Florida State fans. That's probably what you're most excited about, right? Jared Verse playing like the top 10 NFL draft pick that I think he is. He had 3 total sacks. He won his pass rush win rate, 35%. That even seems low after you watch the film. I mean, again, I don't think he was blocked on a single rep. Patrick Payton getting involved, Joshua Farmer. This defensive line, Braden Fisk had a really nice game against Duke. If this Florida State team goes out and wins a national title, I think it's going to be a large story is going to be how dominant can this defensive line can be. And what you saw against Wake gives you a lot of optimism about how special this defense can be. You take a look at what Wake was able to do. Mitch Griffiths, who's put up some good numbers at times for Wake, was 6 of 16 for 82 yards. Wake Forest only ran the ball for, I believe, 128 yards, and half of that came on one carry. You take away one play of the game, and Wake Forest barely got to the 150-yard mark of that game, a dominant performance from the front seven. And then you look at the secondary, and a lot of talk was Fentrell Cypress coming in the portal from Virginia. He's been awesome in pass coverage. Renardo Green, targeted 8 times, only gave up 2 catches. That is a not a bad Wake Forest wide receiver room. And Green looked absolutely awesome. I think the biggest takeaway for this Florida State defense was that looks like a national championship caliber defense going up against the Pitt offense that, made a switch at quarterback. Nothing has really worked. Only scoring 19.1 points per game. That's 116th. Only averaging 4.7 yards per play. That's 107th. They struggle to pass protect. They struggle to get the run game going. You take a look at the numbers. They've only averaged 3.1 yards per carry. That's 117th in the country. Their pass completion percentage between the two quarterbacks that have played, only 49%. That's 128th in the country. That is bottom of the barrel in the FBS. This seems like another performance from this Florida State defense where you can trot them out in the first half, really get after this Pitt team, and then let the second string guys come in and maybe get some work in the second half. But again, if you get a performance from that Florida State defense that you saw at Wake Forest in this game, it's going to be a long day for the Pitt Panthers on offense. The offensive line has really, really struggled in pass protection too. So you talk about Jared Verse, Patrick Payton, Fabian Lovett, Braden Fisk, Gilbert Edmond. I thought I had some good work against Wake Forest. They should have a day in terms of getting after the passer as well. Now, flipping sides, getting into this Florida State offense, what I'm most excited about, this Pitt defense is not as bad as you see on paper, right? You look up what Pitt's scoring defense is. They allow 31.9 points per game. That's 101st in the country. That being said, you look at the yards per play metric and a little bit more of the efficiency metrics, and Pitt is in towards the top half of the country in defense, only giving up 5.3 yards per play. That's 52nd in the country. This Pitt defense is a solid defense that's just been put in bad spot after bad spot behind a Pitt offense that's been bad. And what I'm most excited for, and we'll get to what we saw and what we liked about Florida State and where they can attack this Pitt team. I want to see if Florida State can run the football against a Pitt front seven that is pretty damn good, right? They're only giving up 3.6 yards per carry. That's 32nd in the country. Our big storyline that we're monitoring for this Florida State team is this offensive line. if there is one part of this Florida State team, they got the quality, not quality quarterback. That's disrespectful. They have an elite quarterback in Jordan Travis, elite playmakers surrounding him, probably one of the best running backs and wide receiver duos in the country. They have a really good defense. If there's one unit that you're waiting to kind of hit its stride and play elite level football, it is the offensive line. I'm looking at this Florida State offensive line to establish the run, get Trey Benson going, win at the line of scrimmage, and pass protect a little bit better. I mean, they didn't give up any sacks to Wake Forest, but there were some pressures that they gave up, and it's obvious that this offensive line is banged up. They're cycling guys in and out, trying to find that right fit. If you're a Florida State fan, you're looking at this game and saying, we probably can score on Pitt in some different ways. When you have Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, that makes it easier. But can we pass protect against a Pitt defense that is sacking the quarterback 8.6% of the time? That's a top 25 metric in the country, and they're good against the run. This is a good Pitt front seven. Really excited to see what Florida State's offensive line can do in terms of establishing the run and keeping Jordan Travis clean. Now, looking at where Florida State can really get after Pitt, it's in the secondary. Pitt secondary giving up a 65% completion percentage. That's 110th in the country. 8.4 yards per pass. That's 117th in the country. It's been a really weak secondary. And Florida State and Jordan Travis, they're going to look to push the ball down the field. And one thing that I'll note, I'm not breaking any news to Florida State fans. Keon Coleman is one of the best receivers in the country. That's not breaking news to anyone. Time and time again, just you got the Keon Coleman play. So he's getting a very similar treatment to what Marvin Harrison Jr. gets at Ohio State, where you need a big play. You don't have to look at anyone else. Just go throw it up to Keon Coleman, the 6'4" frame. He's going to come up with the catch more times than not. If he doesn't come up with the catch, he's probably drawing a pass interference call. So when you have a weapon like Keon Coleman, it makes an offense so much easier to run. But I'm going to say this, and Florida State fans who've been listening know what I'm going to say. Jaheim Bell, I think, is going to be a massive story for Florida State in the back half of the season, ACC championship game, college football playoff type games. Because you have Keon Coleman. You know he's a dog. Well, the whole defense knows he's a dog as well. He's going to get that treatment. Safeties over top. You have Johnny Wilson, also one of the best receivers in the country. He's going to get that treatment too. What happens is you have Jaheim Bell working the middle of the field. When these safeties have to respect Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell can be a guy that provides some juice over the middle of the field. And that's what I'm continuing to look for. Jaheim Bell's back-to-back, probably his two better performances as a Florida State Seminole. I want to see him continue to get that confidence, continue to build that chemistry with Jordan Travis, because I really do think in some big moments, Florida State's going to be playing some big moment football in the next couple of weeks. Jaheim Bell is going to come up big. When you're talking about a 3rd and 8, you need to pick one up. You have Jaheim Bell over the middle of the field, and he goes out and makes a play. Or goes out and makes a massive run after the catch. He's an offensive weapon. And I think the first couple of weeks, maybe it took some time to figure out what he's going to do in this offense. I think they're starting to figure it out, and I think he's going to be a massive storyline for Florida State coming into some of these bigger games. I will say, side note, doing a phenomenal job blocking. That was his big bugaboo coming out of South Carolina, was he's a tight end, but he doesn't really block in line that well. Mike Norvell and this coaching staff has, I think, just, I don't know what flip switched, but he's a guy that he looks, and again, he's not the biggest frame on that inline tight end when he's there, but he's a guy that he's showing a lot of effort blocking. And when you show a lot of effort blocking, you can block. Like, anyone can block. Maybe not me. I'm 155 pounds, but if you are a smaller body, but you show effort down the field blocking, you can be a pretty damn good blocker. And Jaheim Bell's starting to show that effort. So that's one thing I did want to note as well. Getting to the pick here, 21.5 points. If we get any sort of resemblance of what we saw from Florida State against Wake Forest, I think they win this one. They cover the number. I think it a little bit more depends on how long do the starters play and how long does Florida State keep the foot on the gas. But when you look at this matchup, Pat Narduzzi, like, publicly, I don't know if the word shaming is right, but publicly getting after his players, saying they're not good enough, I would be questioning what kind of performance you get from those Pitt players in terms of quit watching the second half when it's a 21-point game. And for Florida State, if you see the same offensive performance, if you see the same defensive performance, it's really hard for me to look and say they're going to go on the road to Pitt and be in a tight game. I think they can cover this number. The one thing you have to keep in mind is just staying locked in, staying focused for 4 quarters. I think Mike Norvell had that scare against Boston College. I think that woke this team up in terms of, hey, when we're playing teams that we should beat, we got to keep the foot on the gas and we got to go play 4 quarters because we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where it's coming down to the 4th quarter against a team that we should be beating 99 times out of 100. I'm going to take Florida State. Again, I think as they get healthy, you're starting to see the best version of them again. And Florida State, this team really does seem to be a wagon. We're going to be breaking down the college football playoff rankings as well, Florida State fans. So lock in for that. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys as usual. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.